Whoop whoop, what's up, my juggalos and juggalettes? You know who it is. It's me, Loc-Co, and this is Loc-Co's Juggalo Corner. Um, I kind of, mm, I'm kind of rushing to make this video. I don't know if like my makeup's put on correctly because I kind of rushed through it. But just got out of work and I wanted to make this video because seriously, this is something that's been kind of bugging me for a while, since my last video. I kind of discovered some stuff. Well, some that's not really new, but it's about a certain individual. And I'm not gonna name his name because I'm not gonna sell him. I used to work for the music industry, so I know what kind of tactics he's using. He wants people to talk about him, get people curious, and have people buy his shit, check out his videos, give him some views, sell a couple of records here there. So I'm not even gonna name this guy. And please, to my fellow juggalos and juggalettes, if you know who I'm talking about, please do not leave his name on the comments because I will delete it if you do leave his name. There's no hate against y'all, but I don't want this guy being named. Like I said, he's using, he's using kind of like the heat towards him to like get attention, to get some album sales. But as juggalos, we're not new to haters. There's been haters everywhere. Now, if you go on YouTube and check the search, juggalo haters or people hating on juggalos or juggalo diss, you're gonna find a shit ton of videos and about why people don't like juggalos and reasons why they hate us and you know and we heard it all before and the three typical things. This guy tried to make a diss video about that. We're fat, we're stupid, and we don't know shit about music. Alrighty then, whoop-de-doo, Basil. Like, come on. If you're gonna diss us, try something. Try to say something new. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't go by shit by people. Other people has said before to us. Like, that shit doesn't even phase us anymore. You know. And this guy made to me, he's like another cannabis. And I don't know if too many of you juggalos know who cannabis is, but those that don't know, cannabis was basically an MC that tried to make a living off of dissing, and all his dissing kind of like did not fall through. For example, he started with L Cool J, and in the end, L Cool J came out the victor. Try to diss Wyclef. Wyclef just like basically made one diss song that he didn't even put that much effort into it and ignored him. So that didn't fall through. And last but not least, he tried to diss Eminem. Eminem didn't even like only gave him like one word, two words. Like he's not even in my radar. So like, this guy kind of ended his career trying to diss people. And to me, this guy is trying to do the same thing. He dissed two rappers. You know, off of personal shit and try to make it public, and try to create a name for himself off the scandal. And, you know, I guess it didn't fall through and then he made a song to piece it up, and to dead the beef and basically he deaded that beef. But now he's like, on full range attack on juggalos. He's like he's attacking the fan base. And to me he's like contradictive because at the same time talking shit about juggalos that we don't know shit about music and that we're brainwashed. I don't know about being brainwashed, but I'm an individual. If I don't like something, I don't buy it. I don't buy their products. I don't buy none of their T-shirts, none of their gear. I don't buy their albums. So if I don't like a certain artist that Psychopathic puts out, I'm not forced to buy it. If I don't like that artist, I don't like that artist. To each its own. You know what I'm saying? There are juggalos that don't like, certain artists and they just don't buy the record, And, we're not conditioned or brainwashed, So like basically there are certain albums from ICP I really love, but there's certain albums I don't like. So I'd rather not. The ones I don't like, I just leave it alone. I just don't buy it. I don't talk about it. I leave it alone. I just don't buy it. I leave it at that. But this guy contradicts himself that he talks about, in one of his video blogs, he's like saying, "Oh, I don't got beef with Violent J or Shaggy Two Dope. He doesn't have beef with ICP, but yet in one of his songs, in his last song, this guy said like, he wants to kick fucking, he wants to roundhouse kick Violent J off a dam. Dude, I don't know what that is, but I think to me that's called beef. If you want to talk about that's just entertainment, dude. That's beefing. That's like those, as as them old folks was like, them just fighting words. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, come on, dude. You're asking for beef right there, and to me, I find it fucking ridiculous. I find it ridiculous, and you know, it is funny how this guy goes out of his way to really diss juggalos. Like this guy buys like clothes from Hatchet, from Hatchet Gear, buys the chain, buys the T-shirt, buys a hat, and the hat is brand new. Like the tag is on, still on it and everything. And this guy's like talking shit. Like if you don't like if you don't like psychopathic, you don't like juggalos, you know, don't buy the fucking merchandise because that just show you're supporting one way or another, even though you're hating. So you still kind of support them. You know what I mean? Basically, as somebody said, every time you give your dollar to something, to Nike or to whatever product, you're casting your vote. You're saying you like that product. So at the end of the day, you just basically helping. Helping with just buying all those gear and trying to attack juggalos. And to me, this guy touches a nerve because this guy's trying to really try to get some attention. Like, dude, if you want people to pay attention to you, leave all that beefing shit aside and just focus on your fucking music. This guy's got he does have talent. He knows he rhymes really well. This guy can sing. And supposedly, he records and produces and engineers his own stuff. And the sound quality is good, so I give it to him. But at the same time, it's just like, at the end of the day, people will see this guy as another, like, this guy's trying to make a living off of dissing people. So basically, if it doesn't, who you gonna attack next? If like the Juggalo thing doesn't work out? Because I've seen the comments on this guy when he diss Juggalos and making raps about dissing Juggalos, and even the Juggalo haters don't like this guy. So if you're trying to get that crowd, it's not working out. You know what I'm saying? And you know, Joe, us Juggalos, we don't just listen to ICP, but we do listen to other artists from other labels. You know what I'm saying, that plays that wicked shit, and we accept them or we don't. So basically, if you want respect, just stop dissing, focus on your music. And I doubt this guy's gonna listen to my video. If he does, I'll laugh my ass off if he replies back. I will really laugh my ass off, because I would think, damn, he actually found my video and took his fucking time, you know. And if he says I'm a coward for not mentioning him, dude, I'm not gonna sell you. I'm sorry, but I'm not gonna sell you. If you want me to say your fucking name, send me a couple of send me a couple of $100, send me a couple of thousand. I'll say your name. I'll fucking promote your ass all over the place. But I'm not just gonna say your name because I'm not gonna get people curious. But like I said, Juggalos, I'm not, I have nothing against y'all, nothing. But I don't want this guy's name, you know, anywhere near my page, or anywhere near my video, cause on my comments, cause I don't want this. I don't want to sell this guy, like for real. I don't want nobody else to sell this guy because people. I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to get people curious, check out his shit, and probably buy a couple of albums or two. So you know what? I'm just gonna leave it alone. And like I said, ICP, they've been dissed so many times by other people that they just ignore it. To them, it's bullshit. To me, dissing is bullshit. That's like a little kid like in grade school when you like the girl, you send her a little note, you like me, check yes or no. That's what dissing is to me on rec. When someone disses people on a track, that's like you know that's like writing a fuck you letter, and then you reply back fuck you too. It's to me, it's kind of child. Dissing is kind of childish. It's not like I'm not bitching, but it's kind of childish. It got really ridiculous. At first it was cool, for a while, but it just got ridiculous, and people realize, people see it. It's just like, if you're making a diss record, it's because you're trying to get attention, and basically you're getting the wrong, you're not getting the wrong type of attention, but it's just like, what people are gonna like. You make another album even though you're not trying to diss anybody. Oh, here's this guy. He's probably gonna diss another guy again, and then now you're gonna even pay attention to this guy. So at the same time, I gave this asshole some conductive criticism. But hey, what do you know? So basically, my juggalos and juggalettes. That's all I have to say about that. You know, let's keep it up and keep doing our thing. Whoop whoop.